crucified himself between two pine trees, as Peachy's hands will show. Poor Peachy had never done them any harm. He just hung there and he screamed, but he didn't die.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. I do want to apologize for my COVID voice. It's getting a little better, and hope by the next episode it will be back to normal. Today on Classic Movie Review, we are taking on The Man Who Would Be King, 1975. I'm going to say it now. I love this movie, and I've loved it since I first viewed it in the mid-70s mist. This movie has a disgustingly low 7.3 rating on IMDb.com. The film has a much more accurate measure on RottenTomatoes.com with 97% on the tomato meter and 90% audience approval. New York Times film critic Vincent Canby stated on December 18, 1975, quote, "In marvelous old movies like Lives of the Bengal Lancers and Gunga Din, this world is very far removed and terribly romantic, and it still is in John Huston's highly entertaining new film, The Man Who Would Be King, based on the short story by Rudyard Kipling. It's neither a silly update of an entertainment designed for pre-World War II Saturday afternoon America, nor is it one of those films that are wise with hindsight about earlier eras like John Milius's The Wind and the Lion. But this really isn't what The Man Who Would Be King is about. It's a tall tale, a legend, of steadfastness, courage, camaraderie, gallantry, and greed, though not necessarily in that order. Not in a very long while has Mr. Huston, who wrote the screenplay with Gladys Hill and also directed the film, been so successfully lighthearted and so consistent in his command of his subject. Christopher Plummer also gave this film weight in the role of young Rudyard Kipling, who, as a newspaperman in India, participates in the beginning and ending of the story. Supporting the stars are Zaid Jeffries as a sort of glib Gunga Din character, who always begins a tale of woe by saying, "Oh me, by Jove, alas," as if it were only one word.
"Oh dear me, alas, by Jove."
And Shakira Kane, Mrs. Michael Caine, who plays an exotic heathen beauty, unquote. The great Roger Ebert said in a January 1st, 1975 4-star review, quote, "John Huston's The Man Who Would Be King is swashbuckling adventure pure and simple from the hand of a master. It's unabashed and thrilling and fun. The movie invites comparison with the great action films like Gunga Din and Mutiny on the Bounty, and with Huston's own classic, The Treasure of the Sierra Madres. We get strong characterizations, we get excitement, we even get to laugh once in a while. The action epics of the last 20 years seem to have lost their sense of humor, as if once the budget goes over $5 million, directors think that they have to be deadly serious. Lawrence of Arabia was a great movie, but introspective and solemn, and efforts such as Dr. Zhivago and War and Peace never dared to smile. Huston's movie isn't like that. It reflects his personality and his own best films. It's open, sweeping, and lusty, and we walk out feeling exhilarated. This movie proceeds with untold coincidences, untold riches, romance and betrayal, and historic last words, and best of all, some genuinely witty scenes between Connery and Caine, and when it's over, we haven't learned a single thing worth knowing, and there's not even a moral to speak of, but we've had fun. It's great that someone still has the gift of making movies like this. Even Huston, after 30 years, must have wondered if he still knew how, unquote. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Zaid Jeffries was outstanding in the role of Gurkha fighter Billy Fish. Jeffries was first covered in The Razor's Edge, 1984. Sean Connery played Daniel Drivet, the man who would be king. Connery was born in 1930 in Scotland. His parents were working class, being a cleaning lady and a factory worker. At 16, Connery joined the Royal Navy. However, he was medically discharged later due to an ulcer. During this period, he had numerous jobs including bricklayer, coffin polisher, milkman, a nude model at Edinburgh College of Art, and as a bodybuilder, placing third in the Mr. Universe contest in the tall man division. At age 23, he had to choose between playing professional soccer or going into acting. He made the right choice for us. The first movie I remember seeing Connery in was Darby O'Gill and the Little People, 1959, where he sang a song. Then came his first Bond role, Dr. No, 1962. He was required to be in The Longest Day, 1962. Then back to Bond with From Russia with Love, 1963. Goldfinger, 1964. Then Marnie, 1964. And the military sadist drama, The Hill, 1965. Back to Bond with Thunderball 65 and You Only Live Twice, 1967. Then Irish political intrigue with the Molly Maguires, 1970. Back to Bond with Diamonds Are Forever, 1971. Whodunit, Murder on the Orient Express, 1974. One of the worst movies ever, Zardoz, 1974. Followed by one of the greatest, The Man Who Would Be King, 1975. An amazing leading role opposite Candice Bergen in The Wind and the Lion, 1975. Robin and Marion, 1976, with Audrey Hepburn. The great anti-war film A Bridge Too Far, 1977. Another stinker, Meteor, 1979. Cult favorite, Time Bandits, 1981. A non-canonical Bond film, Never Say Never Again, 1983. He was great as swordsman Ramirez in Highlander, 1986. A medieval detective monk in The Name of the Rose, 1986. One of my personal favorites, The Untouchables, 1987, where he won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. Heist film Family Business, 1989. Resurrected the Indiana Jones franchise in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1989. Made us fear the Russians again in The Hunt for Red October, 1990. Unfortunately, he was in Highlander 2, The Quickening, 1991. He had a small cameo in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1991. Performed well in Medicine Man, 1992. Romping Around the Jungle with Lorraine Bracco. Solving a Murder in Rising Sun, 1993. Playing a noble but too old king in First Night, 1995, opposite Julia Ormond. Adventure film The Rock, 1996. Playing a master thief in Entrapment, 1999, with Catherine Zeta-Jones. And the not too good The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, 2003. Connery is now retired. He has been knighted and voted the sexiest man alive, so I would say he had a good run. Michael Caine played the lovable rogue, Peachy Carnahan. Caine was born in England in 1933. His mother was a wash lady and his father handled fish. Caine left school when he was 15 years old. He eventually joined the British Army and saw combat during the Korean conflict. When Caine returned to civilian life, he became interested in theater. He was a prolific actor on English television. He worked in stock companies and eventually was very successful in the theater. Caine had a strong Cockney accent and often wore glasses. Nonetheless, he made it into movies. His first film was Hell in Korea, 1956, followed by the really bad The Day the Earth Caught Fire, 1961, Zulu, 1964, along with a lot of other British actors, and the heartbreaking role of Alfie, 1966, where he was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar. These last two films made him a star. In Great Britain at the time, Caine, Connery, Hoskins, and others wrestled the acting profession from the upper classes. Caine has been in a lot of movies. Remember the Caine-Hagman thesis from PCU 1994? Some good and some bad. He, like most UK actors, was in The Battle of Britain 1969, the crime drama The Italian Job 1969, Get Carter 1971, Sleuth 1973, where he was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar again. He was amazing as Peachy in The Man Who Would Be King 1975, The Eagle Has Landed 1976, A Funny Military Commander in A Bridge Too Far 1977, one of the worst movies ever, The Swarm 1978, a movie that got panned, Dressed to Kill 1980, but I remember it as pretty good. It was also a Razzie winner. Another that got panned, The Island 1980, and a second Razzie, but I liked it. A Silly Premise, Victory 1981, the very good Death Trap 1982, where he had to mouth kiss Christopher Reeves, Educating Rita 1983, which is fun, loving, and an uplifting film, for which Michael was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar. Blame It on Rio, 1984, where he played a lech having an affair with his friend's daughter. Hannah and Her Sisters, 1986, which landed him a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. Sweet Liberty, 1986, one of the funniest history-based movies ever. The very funny Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, 1988. On Deadly Ground, 1994, where Caine was the bad guy and Steven Seagal was the good guy. The Cider House Rules, 1999, where he landed a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. He was outrageously funny in Miss Congeniality, 2000. Perfect as the father of Austin Powers in Goldmember, 2002. The Quiet American, 2003, which landed a Best Supporting Actor Oscar nomination. Secondhand Lines, 2003, which should leave you crying. Batman Begins, 2005. The Dark Knight, 2008. Romeo and Juliet, 2011, voice work. The Dark Knight Rises, 2012. The Utterly Terrible Now You See Me, 2013. An Unhappy Space Adventure, Interstellar, 2014. A Bit in Kingsman, The Secret Service, 2014. Now You See Me 2, 2016. Never saw it. And an old age buddy tale, Going in Style, 2017. Still working. What a man, what a mighty, mighty man. Christopher Plummer played the famous writer Rudyard Kipling. Plummer was born in Canada in 1929. While in school, Plummer trained to be a concert pianist. He began acting while still in high school. He attended Montreal Repertory Theatre to learn his craft. Plummer began acting professionally in 1948 and made his Broadway debut in 1953. He became a renowned Shakespearean actor on the stage. In 1958, Plummer was a significant character in a strange film titled Wind Across the Everglades, 1958. The movie had Burl Ives as the water moccasin-carrying bad guy. Plummer became well known as the anti-Nazi Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music, 1965. Although he was not initially a star, he arrived at the right time to work in war movies such as Triple Cross, 1966, The Night of the Generals, 1967, Battle of Britain, 1969, Waterloo, 1970, The Day That Shook the World, 1975, Aces High, 1976, and Hanover Street, 1979. The two films that bring Plummer to my mind are The Man Who Would Be King, 1975, where he was in the role of writer and poet Rudyard Kipling, and Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, 1999, where he played Klingon warrior Chang. In the interest of time, I've highlighted a few more of Plummer's movies. These films include Cleopatra, 1963, The Silent Partner, 1978, International Velvet, 1978, Murder by Decree, 1979, Dreamscape, 1984, An American Tale, 1986, The Insider, 1999, Dracula 2000 and 2000 as Van Helsing, A Beautiful Mind, 2001, Alexander, 2004, National Treasure, 2004, The Last Station, 2009, Beginners, 2010, The Tempest, 2010, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, 2011. Plummer had numerous films between 2011 and 2021, but I'm not familiar with any of them. He has a film that will be coming out in 2021, but he died earlier this year at the age of 91. Shakira Kane, the wife of Michael Caine, played the alluring Roxanne. Shakira was born in 1947 in British Guyana. In 1967, she won the Miss Guyana pageant. Shakira placed third in the Miss World contest. She began acting in film in 1969 and was confined to minor roles. Shakira married Michael Caine in 1973 and had her best role in The Man Who Would Be King, 1975. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The movie begins in Lahore, British India in 1885. Cobra charmers and all sorts of exotic activities are shown in the streets. In the office of the Northern Star newspaper, reporter Rudyard Kipling, Christopher Plummer, is working late into the night on a poem he is composing. In the streets, a limping man wearing rags and a turban shuffles towards the newspaper office. The man makes it inside and startles Kipling. The man then asks Brother Kipling for a drink in the first of many Masonic references. He eventually reveals himself to be the broken shell of Peachy Carnahan, Michael Caine.
Carnahan. Peachy, Tolliver, Carnahan. Of course. Keep looking at me. It helps to keep my soul from flying off.
Peachy begins telling about the contract that he and Daniel signed with Kipling as a witness. The story begins 3 years earlier. Peachy, who mustered out of the British Army in India, was making a living as a thief. In the ticket line for the train, Peachy pickpockets the pocket watch of another Englishman who is in fact Kipling. A Masonic symbol of the square, level, and all-seeing eye is on the end of the stolen watch fob. Peachy rushes to return the watch to his fellow Mason. He boards into the same traveling compartment as Kipling. The train travels a great distance. Peachy tries to return the watch, but he can't. They are joined in the compartment by a well-to-do Indian. Peachy is as rude as possible to the man. Finally, Peachy throws the man out of the train and tells Kipling that the man tried to steal his watch. Peachy introduces himself as a former British sergeant. As they share whiskey, Peachy asks Kipling to meet a man in 8 days. Kipling refuses, but Peachy responds with, "If I ask you as a man going to the West to seek what is lost, what would be the answer?" They continue to pass Masonic messages back and forth until they establish their credentials. Kipling agrees to meet Daniel Drevitt, Sean Connery, as requested. As Peachy prepares to jump from the train, Kipling says he noticed that the watch was missing in the station.
Well, I'll be getting off now before we reach the station.
By the way, Brother Carnahan, I missed my watch in the station at Lahore before boarding the train.
In 8 days, Kipling combs the trains until he finds Daniel. Kipling delivers the message that Peachy has gone south for the week. Daniel identifies Kipling as a fellow Mason. Daniel explains that they plan to extort money from a Raja. He says that the plan is to tell them that they are correspondents from the Northern Star. Kipling yells that he is the correspondent as the train pulls away. Kipling goes to the British District Commissioner, Jack May, hoping to protect Peachy and Daniel. The District Commissioner doesn't understand why the Masonic bond is so strong. Peachy and Daniel are brought in and their records are reviewed. They bring up that the District Commissioner is having an affair with the newspaper editor's sister. They are bitter about having fought for the Empire and being cast away when they are no longer needed. They leave as bold as ever. One evening, Peachy and Daniel show up at Kipling's newspaper office. Having decided that India is too small for them, they plan on heading to Kafiristan. Kafiristan was a historical region in what is now Afghanistan. The plan is simple. They will help a local leader by training his army. Eventually, they will take the army and knock off the next king, having a larger army each time. The plan is to be kings and gods. Kipling tells all the problems with hostile tribes and mountains. He even mentions that a mapping party disappeared in the area and that Alexander the Great was the last European to conquer the area. The agreement states that Daniel and Peachy will refrain from liquor or women of any color until they become kings in Kafiristan.
1. That you and me will settle this matter together, i.e. to be kings of Kafiristan. 2. That you and me will not, while this matter is being settled, look at any liquor nor any woman, black, white or brown, so as to get mixed up with one or the other harmful. 3. That we conduct ourselves with dignity and discretion, and if one of us gets into trouble, the other one will stay by him.
They sign the document and have Kipling sign as a witness. Peachy and Daniel do a little research and find that Alexander married a woman named Roxanne after conquering the area. Kipling is in the market when he sees Peachy dressed like a local. They find Daniel dancing for a crowd dressed as the local madman. They are not in blackface, but they are darker. The adventurers have blackmailed the Raja and purchased a cache of rifles to take on their trip. Kipling tries to dissuade them, but they part as fellow Masons. Finally, Kipling gives Daniel the Masonic symbol from his watch fob. They make the dangerous journey through the Khyber Pass. The last time they came through, they had to fight their way through. The two adventurers leave the group and travel alone by night. At the first large river, they have to sell the camel and buy goats. They use the stomach bladders of the goats to cross the raging river. They camp by the river, where 5 Afghans approach them on mules. Peachy puts a bullet in his mouth and pretends to be eating. The 5 men approach and are examining what they can steal. Peachy spits a bullet into the fire. The criminals pull guns on Peachy and Daniel. When the bullet explodes, Peachy and Daniel kill the Afghan men. They take the mules and rifles into the snow-capped mountains. Daniel becomes snowblind and has to hold on to the last surviving mule's tail while Peachy leads the way. Suddenly, their path was blocked by 2 giants. Peachy shoots each of the giants. He moves forward and finds them to be boundary warnings. The ice bridge that they just came across breaks and falls as they enter Kafiristan. They soon find that a crevice blocks their way and accept that they will die in the cold.
Have our lives been misspent?
Well, that depends on how you look at it. I wouldn't say the world's a better place for our having lived in it.
Hardly that.
Nobody's going to weep their eyes out at our demise.
And who'd want them to anyway?
We haven't many good deeds to our credit.
None. None to brag about.
But how many men have been where we've been? And seen what we've seen?
As they laugh about the lives they have spent, a giant avalanche pours down the side of the mountain. When it's over, they have a path to go forward. At last, they come down out of the mountains into the foothills. They watch women and children from a village washing in the river. A group of riders wearing masks raid the women. Peachy and Daniel start shooting the attackers from the vantage on the hill. Peachy and Daniel capture one of the attackers and take him to the village. The people inside of the walls are banging on drums and making noise to scare the strangers away. Peachy, Daniel, and their prisoner have to duck a hail of arrows. Suddenly, a voice calls out from the village asking if they are Englishmen. The speaker is a Gurkha soldier named Billy Fish, Zaid Jeffries, that was part of the missing mapping expedition. Billy acts as a subordinate to the 2 Englishmen.
Peachy, it's a Gurkha.
Rifleman Machendra Bahadur Gurung, known to my regiment as Billy Fish.
Is that right? Well, report, Rifleman. What are you doing here? Wherever here is.
Oh, I come with Colonel Robertson, sir.
The geographer's party?
Oh, dear me, alas, by Jove. Party not reaching Erheb for very misfortunate reasons.
He takes him to the head of the village, Utah. With Billy translating, Utah says he has enemies all around that piss in the stream where they get their water and steal women. Utah wants to pay a bounty on his enemies, but Peachy says he wants to train the village men and take the other town all at once. They tell Utah that they will make him king of a great area. He buys it. The prisoner is turned over to the village women for death. Peachy and Daniel are treated as honored guests and offered Utah's sons and daughters. Daniel is already paying too much attention to the women. The men play bushkashi, a game much like polo, but with the bagged head of the prisoner. Peachy and Daniel teach the villagers to drill like soldiers. They teach riding, sword fighting, and the manual of arms. They have some trouble communicating. A beautiful woman tries to seduce Peachy.
Now, wait a minute, Dux. Your handsome piece, that I don't deny. But the contract clearly states that the party of the first part, which is Danny, and the party of the second part, which is me, shall nowise compromise ourselves with parties of the third part, which is you.
And he is only saved when Daniel busts him. They decide it's time to seek battle. Peachy and Daniel lead the village out for the attack. They are both wearing British red jackets. Michael Caine's jacket was the same one he used in the great movie Zulu 1964. The men from the other village run out to attack. As they get ready to fight, a group of monks walk through, and the locals lay on the ground. After they are gone, Daniel breaks rank and leads a cavalry charge. To save him, Peachy leads a bayonet charge. During the battle, Daniel is hit in the chest by an arrow. He has a bandolier under his shirt and is unharmed. The locals believe Daniel to be a god. All of the men in the village being attacked bow down to Daniel. After the fighting is over, Utah comes to kill prisoners. Daniel stops Utah from killing the prisoners. Daniel beats Utah down and tells the conquered men that they will be part of the army and their town will be spared. They'll take half of the town's wealth. Hearing cheers outside, Daniel goes outside with his arrow. They are saying Sikander, a bastardization of Alexander. Peachy is interested in the town that Alexander the Great built and where the monks live. Peachy and Daniel tell Billy the truth but decide to let the people think Daniel is a god and the promised son of Alexander. They hear noise from outside, and the locals are playing bushkashi with the head of Uta. The now larger army continues to conquer town after town. The army continues to grow and perform military tasks excellently. Villages start surrendering without fighting. Finally, there are no towns left in Kafiristan to conquer. Daniel, now acting as a god and carrying his arrow with him, sees the beautiful Roxanne, Shakira Kane. Daniel is smitten by her beauty. He takes the name Roxanne as a sign. Roxanne believes that if a god makes love to a woman, the woman will be consumed by a magical fire. A party of monks comes from Scoundrels to invite Daniel to meet Kafu Salim, Karum bin Buuni. Billy says that they must go. The monks only want the two British men to come without the army. Peachy makes the case that they have to go so that their army keeps thinking Daniel is God. Billy goes along with the two British men to the high mountain city. The city has several Greek-style buildings in the plaza. All three travelers are disarmed before they are allowed to enter the city. Kafu plans to test Daniel's status as a god by having an arrow fired into his chest. When he sees that Daniel is about to be shot, Peachy runs forward and knocks the bowman down. The monks grab Daniel and expose his chest. Kafu prepares to stab Daniel with a blade. When Kafu sees the Masonic symbol around Daniel's chest, he believes him to be the son of Alexander, or Sikander as it's pronounced. Kafu and his monks show a carved Masonic symbol left by Alexander. The monks dress Daniel in robes of white and purple. He is even given a golden crown to wear. Later, Daniel, Peachy, and Billy are taken to a throne room that contains massive stores of gold, gems, and other treasures. Billy informs Daniel that all of the treasure is his. Peachy wants to fill his pockets and leave immediately. Billy translates that Daniel could take the treasure. They decide they will have to wait 4 months for winter to end so they can leave. Daniel begins to hold court like he is King Solomon. In one case, a man has obtained 60 cows and all of his village's goats because of his wife's infidelity.
This man owns 60 cows. All cows in the village.
Very enterprising of him.
Enterprise is not his. Enterprise is hers. She's his wife, you see. And every time he catches her with other man's has to pay a forfeit of 6 cows. Is Kafri custom. Use other man's wife, pay him 6 cows.
You mean he's piled up a fortune of 60 cows out of her infidelities?
And 32 goats.
She ain't a wife. She's a going concern.
Daniel is being deluded by his own power. He even asks Peachy to bow when he passes by. Peachy spends his time with a work crew building a rope bridge across a chasm. One day, Peachy sees the birds are going north and tells Daniel it is time for them to leave. Daniel announces that he plans on staying and continuing his role as a god. Daniel now believes he is a reincarnated god. Daniel says he will also marry Roxanne. He continues that he will make the country into a modern nation.
Beginning with your taking Brother Kipling's watch. More than chance has been at work here. More than mere chance. Why his watch and not somebody else's? And what made him give me the emblem? One thing after the other. The avalanche. The arrow. The mark on the stone.
And I tell you, you need a physic.
I'm fair disappointed in you, Peachy. You of all men who followed me and helped to make me what I am.
Followed you? Me? Who had hold of the mule's tail? Tell me that.
The Jenny also done her bit.
Peachy reminds Daniel that he was the one holding the ass's tail when they came through the mountain. The contract is definitely over. Daniel announces that he plans to marry and have a son. The monks say that the marriage is not proper. They decide that their all-seeing God should decide. Daniel overrules the monks. Peachy is busy packing his treasure to leave when Billy comes to see him. Billy tells of ominous signs and omens that are happening in the country. Billy says the all-seeing God is mad because of Daniel's deception. Roxanne and her entourage are brought to the city. She and her family are not happy because they believe she will be consumed with magical fire. Peachy is prepared to leave with his riches and with all of the riflemen. When Peachy hears the screaming of Roxanne and company, he begs Daniel to leave with him. Daniel refuses, but asks his former friend to stay for the wedding ceremony. Peachy agrees to stay for the ceremony. At mid-morning, Roxanne is brought forth for the wedding. She is heavily drugged to ensure her compliance. Daniel places a ring on the drugged girl's finger as her relatives flop around and convulse. When Daniel kisses Roxanne, she bites him on the cheek and blood flows. Cafu touches the blood on Daniel's face and denounces him as a false god. Peachy grabs Daniel and he and Billy take the fallen god out of the city. Finally, the crowd begins to chase the three soldiers. Peachy says they can't defeat the mob and have to fire in sections while they retreat. The mules are scattered and the riflemen are slowly taken down as the soldiers fall back. Finally, all that are left are Peachy, Daniel, and Billy. Peachy tries to get Billy to escape on one of the mules, but Billy replies, "Gurkhas are foot soldiers." He takes his kukri knife and runs into the mob. The mob tears him apart. Peachy and Daniel are surrounded and captured. Daniel apologizes to Peachy for messing up the plan. Peachy forgives him. The mob makes Daniel walk into the middle of the rope bridge. When he is there, they begin hacking the ropes until he tumbles into the valley. The scene returns to the wide-eyed Kipling listening to Peachy's tale. He says Daniel fell for half an hour, and then he says that he was crucified between two pine trees. The next day they took him down because he had survived.
And you know what they did to Peachy? They crucified him, sir, between two pine trees, as Peachy's hands will show. Poor Peachy had never done them any harm. He just hung there and he screamed, but he didn't die. And the next day they come and they took him down and they said it was a miracle he wasn't dead, and they let him go.
It took Peachy a year to get back. Peachy leaves a bag behind and says he has urgent business in the South. Kipling opens the bag and it is the dried head of Daniel still wearing the golden crown. I'll be back with the conclusions and world-famous short summary directly. Conclusions. I have to confess that there are dozens of Masonic references in this movie, and I've only mentioned a few, or quite frankly, I would still be here rewinding. In the video titled Sean Connery About the Man Who Would Be King, Sean Connery stated that director John Huston gave him very minimal instructions on acting the part. Huston did say that Peachy and Daniel were one man who could accomplish anything as long as they are together. This really encapsulates this film better than any other statement I've seen. In the same video, Zaid Jeffries, the actor who played Billy Fish, said that Huston tried to make this film for 20 years but managed to make it at the right time. If the film had been made in 1956, it was to star Clark Gable and Humphrey Bogart pretending to be British and some Mexican actor pretending to be the Gurkha. According to IMDb.com, other pairs considered for the role include Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas, Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole, Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Newman? Oh God! Karum bin Bouani was a night watchman for an olive orchard near the set location. Shakira Kane was also said to be the last-minute pick for Roxanne, as she was present when shooting began. World-famous short summary: Bros before beautiful ladies. The show is now completely free and independent, brought to you without ad. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review where you get your podcast. It really helps the show get found. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierab.com. Beware the Moors.